Without objection.
Is there agreement? I would ask my friend from Montana. I don't want to encroach on anybody's time.
I think we should rescind the quorum call first.
I asked that.
Yeah, I don't think they heard you, Senator.
I asked unanimous.
The quorum call has been dispensed with.
Okay. And could I ask is there a previous agreement on time?
The next hour is equally divided with 10-minute limits.
Thank you. Mr. President, I rise in behalf of the amendment which, according to the Congressional Budget Office, this amendment would provide an estimated $100 billion or more in consumer savings over 10 years. That's unique to this bill. It's unique to this legislation. It actually saves the taxpayers money. I think it's important, Mr. President, for us to go back and see how we got here. Again, with the administration and the president reversing his previous position in favor of drug reimportation, of the president's chief of staff, Mr. Rahm Emanuel, reversing his position on drug reimportation. And it's, again, a lot of it has to do with the deals that have been made. And I refer, to start with, to the August 6, 2009 New York Times article, and I quote, "Pressed by industry lobbyists, White House officials on Wednesday assured drug makers that the administration stood by a behind-the-scenes deal to block any congressional effort to extract cost savings from them beyond an agreed-upon $80 billion. And then it goes on to say, quote, "We were assured we need somebody to come in first. If you come in first, you will have a rock-solid deal." Billy Tozan, the former Republican House member from Louisiana who now leads the pharmaceutical trade group, said Wednesday, "Who's ever going to go into a deal with the White House again if they don't keep their word? You're just going to duke it out instead." The pressure from Mr. Tozan to affirm the deal offers a window on the secretive and potentially risky game the Obama administration has played as it tries to line up support from industry groups typically hostile to government health care initiatives, even as their lobbyists push to influence the health measure for their benefit. But here's the important point of this article, and I would ask unanimous consent that this article from the New York Times be put into the record at this time.
Without objection.
But the important quote is, Mr. Tozan said the administration had approached him to negotiate. Quote, "They wanted a big player to come in and set the bar for everybody else," he said. He said the White House had directed him to negotiate with Senator Max Baucus, the business-friendly Montana Democrat who leads the Finance Committee. Mr. Tozan said the White House had tracked the negotiations throughout, assenting to decisions to move away from ideas like the government negotiation of prices or the importation of cheaper drugs from Canada. My goodness, my goodness. They blessed the deal, Mr. Tozan said. So that's how we got here, with the administration coming over with a letter last night basically saying they would oppose or certainly impede the ability of Americans to import drugs from Canada. So what have we seen happen in the interim? Here again is a New York Times article entitled, "Drug Makers Raise Prices in Face of Healthcare Reform." And here is a graphic demonstration of it. So this little line right here, I would say to my colleagues, is inflation. Is inflation in this country. And if you look at it for the year 2009, inflation is actually minus 1.3%. Now, look at the wholesale drug prices. The annual change, 8.7%. So while inflation has gone down 1.3%, actual costs of drugs have gone up 8.7%. So, even then, the article from the New York Times says, and I quote, "Even as drug makers promise to support Washington's health care overhaul by shaving $8 billion a year off the nation's drug costs after the legislation effect, the industry has been raising its prices at the fastest rate in years. The last year, the industry has raised the wholesale prices of brand-name prescription drugs by about 9%. This will add another $10 billion to the nation's drug bill. So let's get the math right here, my friends. The drug companies have offered to save the American consumer $8 billion a year, and guess what? They have increased their prices where it will add more than $10 billion to the drug bill of America's citizens, including our seniors. So the math is they agreed to $8 billion reduction. They actually will have already this year seen an increase of more than $10 billion. So they're on track to make a $2 billion profit off of their deal. No wonder they made a deal. It's add more than $10 billion to the nation's drug bill, which is on track to exceed $300 billion this year. By at least one analysis, it is the highest annual rate of inflation for drug prices since 1992. And this is the Consumer Price Index right here. The Consumer Price Index, fallen by 1.3%. Drug makers say they have valid business reasons for the price increases. Critics say the industry is trying to establish a higher price base before Congress passes legislation that tries to curb drug spending in coming years. So that's what this is all about. They increase the prices so that it reaches a certain level, and that's what they will negotiate on. And they already are in line to experience $2 billion more in profit than the $8 billion that they say cut. What a Ponzi scheme this is. A Harvard health economist, when we have a major legislation anticipated, we'll see a run-up in price increases, says Stephen W. Schondelmeyer, professor of pharmaceutical economics at the University of Minnesota. He has analyzed drug pricing, etc. A healthcare economist, Joseph Newhouse, said he found a similar pattern of unusual price increases after Congress added drug benefits to Medicare a few years ago, giving tens of millions of older Americans federally subsidized drug insurance. Just as the program was taking effect in 2006, the drug company raised prices by the widest margin in a half a dozen years. So we've seen this scam before. We've seen it before. And so what is the administration going to do? The administration sends a letter, I believe last night, not to the sponsor of this legislation, Senator Dorgan, but to another member, basically saying they would have to examine the health and safety. Since when is a prescription drug imported from Canada a threat to Americans' health, since they are obviously have the same standards that we do? The letter is to Senator Carper, and it's signed by Margaret Hamburg, Commissioner of Food and Drugs. And it's really, I mean, I'm not making this up. I am not making this up. The Dorgan Importation Amendment seeks to address these risks, and it talks about our amendment. We commend the sponsors for their efforts to include numerous protective measures in the bill that address the inherent risks of importing foreign products and other safety concerns relating to the distribution system for drugs within the U.S. However, as currently written, the resulting structure would be logistically challenging to implement and resource intensive. Now, let's get this straight. According to CBO, if we pass this, we would save consumers $100 billion. According to CBO, we would provide an estimated $100 billion or more in consumer savings over 10 years. Consumer savings. That's what the CBO says, okay? But what this obviously heavily overburdened Margaret Hamburg, the Commissioner of Food and Drugs, says, however, as currently written, the resulting structure would be logistically challenging to implement and resource intensive. Oh my God. I'm going to have to include for the record the number of employees that are over at the Food and Drug Administration. I'm sure they're full up with their responsibilities as president. In addition, There are significant safety concerns related to allowing the importation of non-bioequivalent products and safety issues related to confusion in distribution and labeling of foreign products. Oh yeah, you know, when we see something come in from a foreign country, and it's so confusing when you look at the labeling of it. It's a remarkable challenge for the American consumer. Related to the confusion in distribution, and labeling of foreign products and the domestic product that remain to be fully addressed in the amendment. But she goes on to say to Senator Carper, who was not a fine and great member of this body, but not the sponsor of the amendment, I ask for additional 30 seconds to finish.
Without objection.
We appreciate your strong leadership on this important issue, and we look forward to working with you as we continue to explore policy options to develop an avenue for the importation of safe and effective prescription drugs from other countries. Translated, the fix is in. So, Madam President, we'll be back on the floor on this, and Mr. President, I'll be back on the floor on this, and I strongly urge the adoption of the amendment. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Florida.
Mr. President, well, I'm back on the floor on this, as I have been over the course of the last decade, because we've been like a yo-yo in my state of Florida on the